Okay. We are going to open the floor to questions, Mr. President, Gurley. Hi. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Hi again, Mr. President, Gurley. We are going to open the floor now to questions from FOCAP members. May I call on Mr. Ken Sasaki of Kyoto News. Ken?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. It's a great honor to meet you in the DC last week and also here in Manila. I wish to ask you about the historical trilateral summit held in DC. The joint vision statement announced the establishment of trilateral maritime dialogue to cope with collective response and coordination, to enhance coordination. What is this dialogue meant for? Is it to respond to the illegal and dangerous actions in the West Philippine Sea? And when and where and by who the first meeting will be held? Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, I think it bears explanation. First of all, the trilateral agreement, as I was explaining when I was in Washington, D.C., was that it is not a response to the immediate occurrences, incidents that are happening to us, with us, around us. But really a continuing development and evolution of the relationship that we have always had with the United States and with Japan. And in truth, it formalizes what the US and Japan and the Philippines have already been doing together. Now, of course, security and defense are a great part of that trilateral agreement. But an even greater part of the trilateral agreement are the economic cooperations that are being fostered by the trilateral agreement. We went during the summit with Prime Minister Kishida and President Joe Biden. We went into quite a bit of detail as to what those areas are: semiconductors, renewables, the transfer of technology, green minerals. All of these things were spoken about. And that plays an essential part of that trilateral agreement. So it is not directed at anyone or against anyone. It is merely a strengthening or a formalization and institutionalizing, I suppose, the relationship of the United States, Japan, and the Philippines. Now, the security and defense part of the trilateral agreement, of course, speaks of interoperability, speaks of joint exercises, which seem to be perfectly, which we have been doing. Again, we have already been doing before, but we have now put it down on paper in a formal document as to what we plan and how that partnership will continue to evolve as time goes on. So when it comes to the security and defense aspect, I'm sorry, of the South China Sea, of the West Philippine Sea, really what the aim of the trilateral agreement, but it's not only the United States, Japan, and the Philippines. It's very many other countries all around the region, and even as far as EU, as far as North America, is really to maintain the freedom of navigation along the South China Sea. Simply because it is a recognition that the world right now is still having to recover from the pandemic economy, from the shocks that came from the Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, and then now the Middle East. We just had a big escalation with Iran attacking Israel. So these are the elements that we are having to deal with. These are the shocks that are completely beyond our control. So we have to maintain commerce, we have to maintain the peace, we have to maintain stability. And that's what really the point of the trilateral agreement is so that we provide for ourselves in the region, in the Indo-Pacific region, an area of peace and stability so that we can all find our way in this new global economy, post-pandemic economy. And I think that's really the point of the trilateral agreement.
Follow-up question, Ken?
Thank you, President. Also, this statement mentioned, as you mentioned, that about the HADR exercises, trilateral ones, and that can be integrated in the maritime activities, such as Batan 2025. Does it mean that the Japanese self-defense force can be a regular member of this Batan exercise? And how and when the first HADR exercise would take place? Thank you.
Well, Balikatan is traditionally between the Philippines, which together with the Philippines and the U.S. It is part of our mutual defense treaty that we hold these exercises every year. Now, with the inclusion of Japan into some of these exercises that we've been doing, not only Balikatan but others, I don't see any reason why Japan should not be part of those exercises in the future. And that again is, I think, is a good move for us to make, simply because it will make it easier for us to work together and to coordinate together, and again, so that we can do the most, focus where the problems are, maximize the resources that we have, so that we can maintain the peace and stability and freedom of navigation, and adhere totally and completely and constantly to the rule of international law, and specifically the UNCLOS.
So the
Thank you.
Batan can be trilateral next year.
I cannot hear. I'm sorry?
So the Batan can be trilateral exercise next year.
Well, we'll see about that. You're not the first person to mention it, and I think that may be something that we can study. So we'll let us just do this Balikatan now. The Balikatan exercise that we are coming into now are the largest exercises that we have ever had, the most complex, and it touches on areas that we have never really had to deal with before, specifically cyber security, command and control, all of these things that we did not that previously we had not included in our coordinative efforts for Balikatan. So let's get through that, and then after that we'll look again how the trilateral agreement has allowed us to more options to include Japan, and we'll see. And I for one have no objection to such an idea.
Thank you so much, Ken.
Thank you.
May we have Mr.
Thank you for taking my questions,
Sure,
President.
of course.
So my question is regarding about the West Philippine Sea and also the Mutual Defense Treaty. Despite a Yungin incident recently where some soldiers were injured, President, you said that there were no reason to invoke the Mutual Defense Treaty. So under what conditions would it possibly be invoked?
I think Secretary Austin explained it very well. If any serviceman, Filipino serviceman, is killed by an attack from any foreign power, then that is time to invoke the Mutual Defense Treaty. I actually, when I spoke to him in Washington, I thanked him for making it very, very clear to everyone, and he did precisely that. He was asked the same question that we are all asked: when do you invoke the Mutual Defense Treaty? When does it kick into action? And he said that's if a Filipino serviceman is killed because of an attack or an aggressive action by another foreign power.
I see. So just a follow-up. So the treaty be invoked against also the patrol vessels or the maritime militias? rather than the military?
Well, as long as they have actually caused casualties and has killed the servicemen, then that whether whatever their designations are, whether they're merchant marine or Coast Guard or actual gray vessels or Navy vessels, it does not matter. That is an attack on the Philippines by a foreign power.
Thank you so much. The next question will be asked by Ms. Alison Jackson of the Agence France Presse.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. President. Excuse me. Does the Philippines have a plan to give the U.S. military access to more Philippine bases as part of EDCA, such as building one on Batanes? And are you concerned that such a move could provoke even stronger actions? Sorry, could you hear me, sir?
I can, yes.
Okay. Let me just start again. Does the Philippines plan to
Yes.
give the U.S. military access
Let
to
me
more...
stop you right there. The answer to that is no. The Philippines has no plan to create any more bases or give access to any more bases. So, yes. So,
Okay.
but if there's anything else you'd like to ask, I'm happy
given
to.
that they've been granted access to 9 bases so far, are you concerned that this is part of this could be provoking the strong actions by China in the South China Sea, or do you actually consider these sites as protection in case of a conflict between the US and China?
No, I think that's turning the situation on its head. These are reactions to what has happened in the South China Sea, to the aggressive actions that we have had to deal with, the water cannoning, the lasers, the collision, the blocking of our bangka, our fishermen, the putting of barriers across Scarborough Shoal. This is a reaction to that. This did not cause that. That happened before we had EDCA.
And just to clarify, that's a categorical no to more EDCA bases?
No, definitely. No. The Philippines has no plans to open or to establish more EDCA bases.
As my follow-up question, are you concerned that a Donald Trump administration would not offer the same ironclad commitment to the Philippines that the Biden administration has repeatedly made as recently as last week? And what impact would that have on the Philippines' strategy of pushing back against Chinese actions in the South China Sea, such as publicizing incidents?
Well, I think it would be artful to say that we do not watch closely the political cycle that is ongoing in the United States. Because inevitably, if there is a change in government, if President Biden is reelected, then we have a fairly solid ground to base our positions on, because we have already spoken with him. But inevitably, if there is a change in government, then there will be changes in policy. We do not know what those are. But I believe that what we have agreed with the United States are beyond politics. And I think that since they almost rise to treaty agreements, those treaty agreements must be honored. And that, I think, puts us on good ground. But I will not deny that we look. Certainly, we examine who's going to be in charge. Who's going to, in case the former President Trump is reelected, what will be the changes that will affect us? It's hard to say. It's all speculation for now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
May we have Ms. Raisa Robles of the South China Morning Post.
Good afternoon.
Sir. This is concerning the Arelma case involving ill-gotten wealth of your family of at least $40 million in bearer bonds
Ito na yun,
invested
guys.
by the Panamanian Corporation
Ill-gotten wealth of the family
in Merrill
question.
Lynch in New York.
Okay.
The Philippine government petitioned to get it back, but you filed a petition in 2009 in New York, also later before the Supreme Court here, to stop it. According to the World Bank, it is still pending Now that you are the President representing the Philippine government, with the Solicitor General and the PCGG under you, which side will you represent, Mr. President? Will you fight yourself so that the Philippine government that you now represent can finally get it for the Filipino people?
You know, it's hard for me to answer. You clearly know more about the case than I do. I really haven't looked at it in years, and I would advise you to talk to the lawyers that are handling it, because I'm not being specious or anything like that. Matagal ko nang hindi narinig yung pangalan na Arelma. We were still in Hawaii when we were hearing that name, so we haven't really been attending to it. The previous cases, cases that were filed post 1986, I have not touched. I have nothing. It would be highly improper for me to involve myself in that. Besides, I don't have the time to do it, so I leave it to the lawyers.
Follow-up question, please.
Yes.
Raisa?
Okay.
So ayaw niya ma-involve dun sa
The
mga
Philippine
ill-gotten
government
wealth.
is already compensating martial law, human rights victims under your father's rule. Why have you resisted issuing an apology for atrocities committed during martial law under your father's rule? And will you continue doing so as the president?
Well, I don't think it is a duty for a president to be involved. That is a personal matter for the Marcos family.
But you are a member of the Marcos family.
Definitely, but it's more, my role as president is more important right now than my role as a member of the Marcos family. So I take that's my first priority.
So will you apologize as president of the republic in behalf?
The president of the no, that seems highly a little contrived. No, who is apologizing to whom now?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raisa. May we have Ms. Karen Lema of Reuters, please?
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Thank you once again for being with us today.
Thank you.
Mr. President, your government has been saying that this is related to the South China Sea, my question, particularly on oil and gas exploration. Your government has said that it was prepared to guarantee, and I quote, unimpeded and peaceful exploration of all natural resources within the EEZ and other areas where we have jurisdiction. May I ask, how does your government plan to accomplish that, and what will that entail?
That's a fairly sensitive question, because let me categorize those areas that are ripe or that we are looking at for exploration. There are those who are in non-conflict areas. That's what we defined. That's what we term them as now: the conflict areas and non-conflict areas. And as far as the Philippines is concerned, if those prospective reserves are within the EEZ, conflict area or otherwise, then any exploration should be conducted by the Philippines. So if that, however we choose to do it, if we choose to do it by ourselves, if we choose to do it in partnership with other corporations, or which we probably will be the case, because we don't have the capacity for that very large scale heavy engineering in terms of exploration. But how that's going to be done, because in our case in the Philippines, it is really not a matter of choice. Let me take it back a couple of steps. In the Philippines, we are presently trying to shift our mix of power generation from fossil fuels away from fossil fuels towards renewables. Now, that doesn't happen in an instant. You do not flick a switch and you are suddenly all renewable. You have a transition period, which is turning out to be much more complicated than everyone thought. But anyway, in the Philippines, we have decided that LNG is going to be our transition fuel. And that is why it is imperative for the Philippines to now examine and to see, to guarantee the supply of LNG to our country so that we have sufficient power. Because it's not enough that we maintain the levels of power generation that we have now. Well, with all the plans that we have, essentially to industrialize the Philippines, it's essentially to enter into the digital space, all of these things require a great deal of power. And so it is important to the Philippines that we explore those reserves and see exactly what there are and how we go about exploiting them and bringing that gas supply to the Philippines. So we are doing our best. I think we will, of course, to keep it simple. I think the prevailing term these days is pick the low-hanging fruit. So the low-hanging fruit will be those reserves that are within our EEZ that are not in a conflict area. We'll attend to that first, and then we'll see what else that we can do. We need them all, though. We need them all. Even if we do well with the non-conflict areas reserves, we still have to look at all the others, whether they be in conflict areas or otherwise.
Follow up, please.
Just a follow-up, Mr.
Very
President.
quick.
Has progress been made on the oil and gas talks between the Philippines and China? Last year, if I'm not mistaken, both countries have agreed to resume oil and gas talks. So has progress been made? If yes, why? And if no, then why not?
Well, we always come up against the same argument, or between China and the Philippines, because when we say that we would like to explore, they insist that these areas are in Chinese territory, and therefore Chinese law must prevail. We, of course, do not accept that. We say this is Philippine territory, and therefore Philippine law should prevail. That's really where the sticking point is. Even before I came into office, that was already the situation we're in. I hear a great many optimistic reports that they're saying that we have agreed, we've come to an agreement, but I haven't really seen something that we can use to work forward. In other words, I don't really think we have a proper agreement, and it really comes down to that issue: which law will apply? And the reason that there is an argument is that China claims that these territories belong to China. We dispute that, and